New Glenn is expected to be prepared for its first official mission by August of the following year, according to recent updates from NASA and other officials. There are only roughly 9 months left before then, which raises the questions of how far the company has come and whether a launch at this early stage is feasible. After all, before this car is ready, Blue Origin still needs to complete a number of testing and development milestones. However, NASA is far more knowledgeable about Blue Origin's advancements than the company makes available to the general public. Put another way, because Blue Origin withholds a lot of information, they might be further along than we know. I'll go into greater detail about New Glenn's development, impending launch, hectic future, and other topics here. NASA gave Blue Origin and the New Glenn vehicle a mission to Mars in February of this year, which would carry 2 spacecraft. It was surprising to learn at the time that the launch would occur sometime in 2024. They did, however, also make it clear that this particular mission was a Class D mission. According to NASA, these missions are both high risk and low priority. Additionally, they highlight the substantial alternative or reflight opportunities that exist for Class D missions. In light of this, it appeared at the time of the award that NASA was merely hoping that New Glenn would be ready and wouldn't be overly concerned if it wasn't. In the present day, the agency's perspective appears to have somewhat changed. Bradley Smith, the director of NASA's Launch Services Program, recently announced that the agency's Mars-bound Escapade smallsats will fly on an incredibly ambitious first launch for Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket around this time next year during a meeting of the NASA Advisory Council's Human Exploration Operations Committee on November 20th. "We will most likely be the very first launch of New Glenn," he continued. According to Smith, this is reasonable because NASA classifies Escapade as a Class D mission with a high degree of risk tolerance. He stated that we are prepared to assume a small amount of risk in exchange for a cost and a mission assurance model that accounts for that risk. These are audacious remarks because he implies that Blue Origin will be prepared even though the mission isn't expected to launch for another year. He stated in a different quotation that there is undoubtedly some schedule risk when New Glenn arrives at the pad and that he has seen Blue Origin's schedule for the vehicle, but he withheld further information. It's also critical to note that launch delay options are severely constrained due to the fact that this is a Mars mission. Mars is only in a position to receive missions every 2 years or so, and there is a limited window of time during which to launch and start your journey toward the Red Planet. A few months of delays could result in the mission being canceled or the agency having to switch vehicles. In addition, NASA has access to far more recent information about Blue Origin's progress than the general public does, as was previously partially mentioned. The agency may have confidence in a possible launch in less than a year because of much more activity going on behind the scenes. Having said that, the business can only keep so much information secret. Some benchmarks and required examinations are visible to the general public. In the event that New Glenn is prepared for a Mars mission by the end of the following year, the next 8 months or so would be quite hectic. There has been a long-standing belief that Blue Origin could actually launch New Glenn in 2025. That would be the first test flights, which would also allow for any mistakes or issues that may arise. You have to keep in mind that New Glenn is a very ambitious car in and of itself, one that will involve many firsts for the company. For example, it might take them a few tries to get the booster landing at sea just right. All things to take into account as they work to send a team to Mars in less than a year. In terms of development, we've seen glimpses of testing and development over time, despite Blue Origin's efforts to keep most things under wraps. For instance, the last time we saw Blue Origin's factory was a long time ago, during the creation of the first stage mock-up for New Glenn. Up until that point, not much work had been done on real test tanks and components intended for testing or flight, with the exception of the structural test article. That was before they published fresh photos from inside the factory a few months ago. Furthermore, on a recent visit to the facility, Blue Origin's Senior Director for Manufacturing, Operations, and Assembly remarked, "We've got a lot of product. All over the main area of the floor are welding machines. Beside them are large sections of metal that will serve as propellant tanks. The rocket-making tools are positioned at a height that allows finished vehicles to be simply transferred onto trucks and transported to a location close to the launch pad." He said that 4 boosters are being produced right now. In light of this, it's also critical to note that Blue Origin and New Glenn have a very different strategy than SpaceX. For instance, with 4 boosters currently in production, it's highly likely that these become fully functional rockets in the future rather than merely prototypes that are quickly discarded after the information needed is obtained. The strategy employed by Blue Origin entails attempting to steer clear of any mishaps and explosion. However, SpaceX is far more accommodating to them and strives to improve through ongoing testing in both directions. The 4 boosters that Blue Origin is currently producing are important because manufacturing and tanking tests have been ongoing for some time. Space Ghost Pictures was able to capture some images of what appeared to be a New Glenn upper stage flipping vertically on April 26th of this year. The image of the tank vertical on the bay appeared to be a typical New Glenn second stage. It also bore similarities to Project Jarvis, the idea for creating a completely reusable upper platform for New Glenn, creating a stainless steel propellant tank for the second stage rocket's main structure, and assessing it as a component of a comprehensive second stage system solution constitutes one aspect of this endeavor. A stainless steel test tank made of steel was rolled to Blue Origin's Launch Complex 36 facility back in 2021 so that ground pressure testing using cryogenic propellants could commence. Even though structural testing and development are crucial, one of the most labor-intensive and significant projects is work on the vehicle's primary engines. The production of B-4 engines has gained a lot of attention lately as Vulcan approaches its primary flight and has a full schedule ahead of it. This means that in a few years, there will be a huge increase in demand for the engine, especially since New Glenn requires 7 per booster. More specifically, based on remarks made by ULA CEO Tory Bruno, the business should anticipate needing 48 engines annually, given 2 Vulcan launches per month. Although these figures may seem daunting, Blue Origin is cognizant of the need. The company has been significantly increasing the production of this next-generation engine in recent months. The company stated in a report in October of last year that dozens of these engines are currently in production to meet the significant and increasing demand for civil, commercial, and defense launches. That was the first indication of what was to come. They recently made available video taken inside the Huntsville Engines factory and the Region nozzle room. Numerous B-4 engines are visible here in early production, all in anticipation of future demand growth. In less than a month, Vulcan is scheduled to launch, and the mission's outcomes will have a big influence on New Glen's development. As this is the engine's first ever flight, Blue Origin will receive a wealth of B-4 in-flight data and evidence that it functions if the launch proceeds as planned. On the other hand, Vulcan and New Glenn would experience some severe delays if something went wrong with the engines. They have verified that the recent explosion on the test stand was caused by a particular problem with the engine rather than the B-4 line. As noted by Tory Bruno, anomalies such as these are common in the early stages of production. But eventually, as the automated shutdown mechanisms are fine-tuned, they start to disappear. He added that the problem is really just an app failure, far less interesting than it sounds. They take place. We test every component as it comes off the line for this reason, he explained, before accepting delivery. Whatever the case, it is expected to be quite a spectacle when New Glen's first launch occurs. The booster for New Glenn was initially intended to land on a cargo ship that had been converted into a movable landing pad. Blue Origin ultimately abandoned the ship concept, and it was soon revealed that they were collaborating with the same company that SpaceX used to build its drone ships. After stage separation during this landing operation, the booster will reorient using its fins, strakes, and B-4 engines, place itself so that it lands on the elevated platform. As Blue Origin approaches the first official launch date, the company is still working on New Glenn. They intend to launch this rocket and its payloads all the way to Mars in less than a year. We'll have to wait and see how things develop, as well as how they affect the space industry. This is Cosmic Era as usual. Please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel in order to see more videos similar to this one. Until the next time.